So this is really interesting. I'm all it, as a leader of people creating this, what do you say is the hardest thing for implementing and maintaining what you presented?
Yeah, so that's a question that actually could get into a lot of different dimensions. If I had to boil it down, I would say the hardest thing is sticking to it during a prolonged period of distress. I noticed that even amongst our own company, people are struggling with the constant onslaught. We're 3 years into this. I showed you that chart on unemployment, which suggests we may have a couple more years at least to go. And I think the hardest thing is reaffirming the message over and over again and not letting people get beaten down, if you will, by all the negative news. And look, I'd be kidding you guys. You read the papers. You have your internet applications and everything. You're looking at all kinds of stuff, and it's 98% of it is negative, and that wears on people. And so one of the things that we've been really stressing, with the leadership team is just get out, be available, and you got to be up, and it's hard. Deborah mentioned, I have a thing about rowing, and as I said, I should have stuck to rowing instead of cycling, and I might not have these crutches. But rowing was a weird sport. It was, you trained, anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. So, do the math on how many thousands of hours a year of training that is, and you might race for a total of 36 minutes in the course of a collegiate season. So the practice to race ratio is extraordinary. And one of the lessons there was people who succeeded were people who could sort of get through that and sort of just keep the eye on the long-term prize. And we try to use analogies and stories like that to remind people that this is a very long-term business. It's a very long-term environment that we're in, and you have to keep persevering. The interesting thing is one of our great young leaders came up with this idea. She runs one of the back office parts of the company for us. And there your heads are down, you're processing a lot of work, you're constantly linked to your computer screen. You don't really have a lot of human interaction with a client. And she went through a whole campaign to personalize the work that was being done. And she collected hundreds of stories and profiles of our clients and posted them all through this work area. And then in her town halls talked a lot about, so you might be writing code for the web, or you might be processing, a really complicated transaction. But she got people to personalize it by, this is going to help Mary Jones reach her retirement more securely. And it was interesting that linkage to the client seemed to allow people to get through some of the hard, long, negative stories that are out there. So, it's a little bit of a rambling answer to your question, but I think having that long-term perspective and then constantly reaffirming from a communication standpoint why you're doing what you're doing, and you got to just be very aggressive in being out there with people about it.